Darkcast Network. Indie pods with a dark side.
Sup, creeps? Today is a little different than our usual stories. Today we're breaking down the top 10 states that you are most likely to encounter a UFO. Some states make the cut, and it makes sense that they made the cut. Others, a bit of a surprise. Ranked from lowest to highest on a sighting potential ranking scale, something I found interesting is the top 10 are not the highest populated states. That whole more bodies, more eyes, more sightings doesn't really pan out, which I find interesting. So grab a cup of coffee or beverage of choice and grab those binoculars and your camera that makes everything film like it was filmed on a potato. As I break down the top 10 states you may be most likely to encounter a UFO sighting. Speaking of coffee, let's hear about our Coffee of the Month. Before we begin today's episode, we want to welcome you to the Creepy Confidential Coffee Corner. We love coffee around here, and it's what keeps us at our best level of creep. Our 2024 May Coffee of the Month is Pointer's Coffee out of Delaware, Ohio. Coffee that's to the point. They are small batch roasters and are local to the Columbus area. The Breakfast and the Midnight are two that I recently picked up. Today we are featuring the Midnight, a full-flavored morning coffee that is perfect for making a morning espresso. No acid bite, just a simple, sippable, and savory cup of coffee. Remember, creeps, our 2024 Coffee of the Month is not sponsored. We believe in shopping here in our cherished USA, and we feel that putting money back in the businesses that help make our daily lives better is important to us. To order your own, send Pointer's Coffee a message through their Facebook page, or you can shop right there on Facebook for your very own bag of Pointer's Coffee. They ship, or you can pick up locally here in the Columbus metro area. Reach out and score your fix of this delicious blend while supplies last. The link to their page will be in the episode notes, and their info for this feature is pinned on our Instagram page to make it easier to find. Now, on to the show. Sup, creeps, and welcome to Creepy Confidential. Is Mothman really a supernatural force predicting impending doom? Did Apollo 11 really land on the moon in 1969? Did you find out if that was a cult that was living just 2 doors down that you waved to every single day when you got your mail? If these are the things you ponder when you should be sleeping, then I would like to welcome you to Creepy Confidential. I'm your host, Noelle, your resident weirdo Wisconsinite. I open case files on my favorite cryptids, cults, conspiracies, and other worldly creepy, with new cases, live broadcasts, and local lore. Some stories have been lost with time. Others are perhaps still happening today in your local communities, right up under your very creepy noses. So get ready, creeps. It's Creepy Confidential. Welcome back, creeps. Got my cup of joe and my map open from the National UFO Reporting Center. I've really been interested in figuring out where the concentration is for all of this UFO activity. Is it where there are less people, maybe more water, government buildings? I don't know. So starting at number 10 and working our way up to 1, and for each state, I'll find an interesting encounter to mention. So buckle up, creeps. Here we go. The first surprise on this list is Michigan, with a sighting potential rank of 10 and a total population of approximately 10 million. The Detroit Free Press put together an excellent article on prominent UFO sightings in Michigan history, and boy, do they have some good ones. In 2023, there was quite an uptick in activity over the Michigan skies, and not just the usual flash of a light here or there. U.S. Air Force and National Guard pilots had shot down an unidentified flying object cruising 20,000 feet over the UP. That's the Upper Peninsula for those non-Wisconsin, Michigan natives. In that week, this one marked the third UFO that had been shot down by the United States, the previous ones being in Alaska and Canada. The Pentagon Press Secretary, Brigadier General Pat Ryder, had reported that the object in Michigan was not a military threat, but that it's, quote, a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities. Our team will now work to recover the object in an effort to learn more, end quote. I really want to put out the, quotes, effort to learn more, right? So it turns out limited info was given to the public about these objects. In a statement following the event, U.S. Representative Debbie Dingell said, quote, the increasing incidence of unidentified objects, the latest over Lake Huron in Michigan airspace, are disturbing. We need the facts about where they are originating from, what their purpose is, and why their frequency is increasing, end quote. Moving along on the countdown, a state that has the 9th highest sighting potential is New Jersey. New Jersey clocks in with a total population of approximately 9.2 million. With over 65 entries logged on the NUFORC in the last year, this tiny little state has a lot going on for its size. Not only does it have quite a few entries, there appears to be something fishy going on, in my humble opinion, and I can only call it 2 words: cover-ups. Here's where my thoughts are with this one, right? I started my research by simply typing into the Googles New Jersey UFO sighting. Entry after entry, there are either something that says they're debunked, or that it was no, it's a UFO. It's not a UFO. It's a blimp. No, it's not a UFO. It's a SpaceX Starlink satellite. That's not a UFO. It's a drone. I'm all for debunking. Don't get me wrong. I like it to, yes, tell me what it is. If I think it's this and it's this, then great. However, I become very skeptic of the debunking when it's just like boom, 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 boom. Entry after entry from multiple sites are shot down right away by big sources. And that seems pretty fishy to me. So I think that there's something going on in New Jersey. Coming in at our 8th spot is Indiana. With a total population of approximately 6.8 million people and 75 entries logged in the NUFORC in the past year, one of the famous encounters is from the heyday of the Martian madness, but it's a good one because I think it also influenced the whole image of the cow flying towards the spaceship thing. So an oldie but a goodie. March 1951, the Indianapolis Star had a show-stopping headline reading, "Flying Saucer Lands Amid Agitated Cows." And then this little blurb, quote, "Following a Marion County farm operator found a red parachute and some type of long mechanism lying in the pasture, agitating the farm's chicken and, quote, usually placid cows," end quote. So that's kind of an interesting one. But I do think that's where that image comes from, since it's such a famous one. I even have earrings of, a Martian beaming up a cow. I also have earrings of Martians beaming up cats. But that whole beaming up thing, kind of interesting. Coming in next is the 7th highest potential rating, and that is Washington, D.C. Now, while this isn't a state, I think it's so high on the map and it is kind of its own thing. I included it as its own location. So the DC area there has a population of approximately 672,000 people and a little over 68 square miles of land. And of that land, 10.67% is water. Now I mention that because I have a feeling the ones with water around them have more mojo going on, but that's just a theory. So I have an actual report. So report number 180588 was reported. This is from the logging system that I talked about, the NUFORC. Interesting website, by the way. So that report number was reported February 25th, 2024 by two pilots while cruising at an altitude of 24,000 feet. They reported a white light going from stationary to rapidly heading north and then disappearing. This person was the captain of an airline and reported the light was off the left wing, bearing 300, claiming the light was brighter than any star, appearing to be just above the haze layer of the Earth. The light then moved north at an extremely high rate of speed before disappearing. Then, the same formation of lights appeared again, but were appearing and disappearing with no change in relative position. The reporter claims to have been seeing this on a regular basis. There are almost always, seeing on a bearing between 290 and 300 degrees, beginning at around 9 p.m. Eastern Time, regardless of their location. So that was just an interesting report I thought that I would share with you, creeps. So moving along, number 6 on the list. This state is always strange, but we have to have it on the list because of what's going on there. So Florida. Coming in with a total population of approximately 22.2 million, Florida is known, of course, for many odd things, including the ongoing sightings of the Florida Man. It's surrounded by water, but in this case, it's all ocean. So I wonder if that also sometimes has something to do with it. So these sightings that I want to mention with Florida are actually titled the Gulf Breeze sightings. They are one of the most famous set of sightings to come out of the Sunshine State. Between November 11th, 1987 and continuing up until 1992, 34 UFO encounters were had by a local building contractor named Ed Walters. The crafts that he witnessed were saucer-shaped but boxy. Think beehive. They appeared to have 2 to 3 floors and a round light source at the bottom. He managed to capture photographs on 18 of his separate encounters. And the MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, managed to also capture images. Walters also managed to spy on creatures walking around, standing 4 to 5 feet tall, with large almond-shaped black eyes and wearing kind of a peculiar boxy uniform. He also witnessed a blue beam that immobilized his leg, and he managed to shoot a photograph of this beam that barely missed his wife. So now, when I read about these particular sets of sightings here, the Gulf Breeze sightings, I imagine this is the quintessential kind of creepy alien with the black almond eyes, the shape, the height, the boxy uniform, everything. The creepy eyes, though, I have, those are like burned into my head from movies and whatnot, so... Now, moving along, we're continuing this journey, moving along to the next state with the 5th highest sighting potential, we have Pennsylvania. With a total population as approximately 12.9 million, the Keystone State has an encounter worth mentioning. The Keckberg UFO may have streaked across the skies, some time ago, but it's one that we will always remember. December 9th, 1965, a huge fireball was seen kind of flying over the skies of Canada and the northwestern United States. It was headed east and in a hurry. It was visible for hundreds of miles and was seen by over 1,000 witnesses. Stan Gordon, a UFO researcher, he was on the beloved Unsolved Mysteries and told the world that this object made a 25-degree turn near Cleveland and was headed on a straight path to Pittsburgh. When it arrived, it made another turn south and was headed towards Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Multiple eyewitnesses stated it approached slowly and crashed into the woods. Metal debris from the craft was reported in multiple states. Following the impact, some witnesses stated they saw a bright electric blue light pulsing from the woods. James Romanansky Sr., a witness and volunteer firefighter, stated the object looked like an acorn. It was about 6 to 8 feet wide and 8 to 10 feet tall. No wings, no motors, no propellers, and writing on the vessel that resembled Egyptian symbols. Government officials scooped in. Like how you imagine in the movies, like we're taking over, move all your stuff, and informed everyone that they had to leave. When they arrived back at the firefighter station, Mr. Senior here, arrived back at the firefighter station, it had been sequestered by agents, and a 5-foot metal box was seen being carried to the site, perhaps to carry debris or the remains of an alien cosmonaut. The number 4 spot belongs to Ohio. With a total population of approximately 11.7 million, the Buckeye State has a sighting that people are still talking about today: the coin incident. This 1973 Mansfield incident is highly regarded as one of the top credible UFO encounters to date. At approximately 10:30 p.m., a UH-1H Huey military helicopter left Port Columbus en route to Cleveland Hopkins Airport. In command was Captain Lawrence J. Coyne, and at the time of the flight, he was 36 years old and he had 19 years of flying experience. Joining him were 3 other military people, including a flight medic, chemical engineer, and computer technician. The craft was cruising at 90 knots above mixed hills, woods, and rolling farmland. The night was calm and starry and had a quarter moon visible. Around 11 p.m., 10 miles south of Mansfield, a single red light was seen in the west flying south. A few moments later, the red light was reported on the southeast horizon, and the flight assumed it was a tower beacon off the kind of the wing or a wing light of another craft. That was until it turned toward the helicopter and began rapidly approaching in an apparent collision course. The captain had to take evasive measures by diving this aircraft out of the path of this unidentified object that was closing in at a startling speed. Suddenly, the object stopped, midair, right in front and above them. It then cast a brilliant green spotlight onto their craft and paused for a moment to scan the other Army passengers. It then buzzed away over Mansfield. As if that wasn't odd enough, once they had all kind of calmed down and figured out, okay, we're cool, and checked their instruments, they discovered their craft was 2,000 feet higher in the sky, meaning that beam had not only scanned everybody, but somehow lifted this huge Huey helicopter higher into the sky, despite the earlier evasive maneuver they had done to drop the altitude. So this is one that I really found interesting. It had all the things, right? You already have military on board. You have an aircraft that's being monitored, watched. You have credible sources. This is definitely one that I found, like, this will stick with me. I'm going to want to research more about this one. So, creeps, we've made it to the top 3. Next on our list, we have the Empire State, New York. This state has the 3rd highest sighting potential rating, with a population of approximately 19.6 million. An area worth noting for this particular state is Pine Bush, New York, also known as the Area 51 of the East Coast. Home to an unusual amount of UFO activity and other worldly events over the years, in the 1980s and 90s, Pine Bush was known as being a particular hotspot for UFOs. Craft that had the apparent ability to modify matter were seen entering and exiting the ground repeatedly. I'm talking like disappear into the ground, right? Local residents would hear odd noises rising up from underneath their feet as if a piece of machinery was humming underneath the ground below them. But more modern sightings in the early part of 2012 were giant rectangular craft that were spotted that had red lights in the center and other white lights spaced around the bodies. And then other craft seen over the years include the classic kind of flying discs, but also wheels, triangles, walnut-shaped craft, fireballs, and spheres. That's a lot going on. And in 2003, a man witnessed a diamond-shaped UFO flying over his parents' farm and other adjacent farms in Salt Point, New York. The craft had a long, tapering tail and a non-reflective black surface with two bright lights on the sides, one light in the center bottom of the craft, and two smaller lights on the nose, one above the other. In regards to the potential underground, facilities I mentioned earlier that are being built, it's speculated that these underground bases are joint military and alien facilities. It's possible that the crafts seen over the area are being tested or used to train pilots. Another question that seems to be asked about is whether the alien race working with our military is benevolent or malevolent. A strange and somewhat kind of scary thing to consider is that their true intentions are unknown. And so is our government's involvement. So there's that. Coming in at our number 2 spot is sunny California. A population of approximately 39 million, with a long coastline, the farthest west coast state definitely has a history of numerous UFO sightings and otherworldly events. Something worth mentioning about this state is there are also, they are also known for USO, which is an unidentified submerged object. A crazy thing about USO is that on Google Maps, it's kind of that crazy thing like you hear about, so-and-so's grandfather passed away, but on Google Maps you can still see him gardening, right? So it's kind of like a snapshot in time someone is preserved there. You can catch USOs the exact same way. It's very interesting because you're going to catch yourself like scanning all the coastline looking for something crazy. But that is a way that you can see these. One to mention is the Tic Tac UFO encounter is an interesting sighting to bring up. It happened in 2014 near the San Diego coast, just off the coastline. And Dave Fravor, the commander of the 300-member Strike Fighter Squadron 41, stationed on board the USS Nimitz, was sent along with others in his squadron to investigate a white tubular, kind of imagine a Tic Tac but big, UFO that was about 10 feet wide and 40 feet long. No windows, doors, wings, or rotors, nor any sort of detectable propulsion system. It hovered approximately 50 feet above the ocean. The waters below kind of were disturbed by frothy waves that foamed, kind of like the head of a beer. That's how I imagine froth. The object creating disturbance had to be so large that it was assumed that it could carry 30 or more small craft like the other one that was hovering above it. The commander reported that he and the other pilots watched the UFO and the underwater disturbance for more than 5 minutes. Sonar picked up a USO moving at approximately 115 miles per hour beneath the water. That's very, very quick. So imagine a sports car, right? But underwater. The UFO traveled at great speed and accelerating rapidly, and then made maneuvers that were impossible by any sort of earthly craft. When the UFO began accelerating, another pilot gave pursuit and captured it on video using an infrared camera. Videos of this UFO and 2 Navy F-18 fighter jets were released by the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That's a mouthful. In 2020, although they had already been leaked on the internet at this point. They were already out there, but they're like, oh, I guess we'll put it out there because everybody already knows about it. The Pentagon has never commented on the authenticity of the pilot's videos, although a spokesperson for the Pentagon confirmed, quote, the Navy has always considered the phenomenon as observed in these videos as unidentified, end quote. That's very helpful. A former U.S. Army kind of counterintelligence special agents called the Tic Tac UFO, quote, exotic technology, which is, of course, we know that, very safe wording. They don't want to, in this day and age, they're like, we have to watch every single thing that we say. Well, creeps, we've reached number 1. Before we get to that number 1 spot, I have one little fun fact to share. It's very small, don't worry. Of all the states, what is the state with the lowest chance of a UFO sighting? Play the Jeopardy music. No, just kidding. It's in your head. Ding, ding. That would be Utah, with a population of a little over 3 million people. I wonder why this state of Utah, they are either not willing to report, not willing to say that they're there, or not willing to say that they've had an experience themselves. So I found it interesting. I was like, well, which, put all the data together. Let's see. Utah was the least likely to have a encounter. So drum roll. Brrr. And finally, we arrive at the number 1 state with the highest sighting potential ranking. I will give you a hint. Okay, if you're from the state, you'll know what this is. The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Yep, the Lone Star State has a total population of approximately 30 million. Now, this one, the incident I want to talk about is the Aurora UFO incident. Maybe a very old incident that I want to mention, but I think that actually kind of, maybe gives it more credibility. The late 1800s, especially in Texas, you wouldn't necessarily have their heads filled with things like, Martian madness and that kind of nonsense. So I don't know. I found it interesting that they were willing to put it in the newspaper about this particular incident. So for this one, I don't have like things that I have put together. I have a newspaper article that I'm actually going to read to you guys. It's an older one, so I want to read that one. So the article is called "A Windmill Demolishes It." This was in the Dallas Morning News, April 19th, 1897. Page 5, if you're really wanting to know. Aurora, Wise County, Texas, April 17th, about 6 this morning, the early risers of Aurora were astonished at the sudden appearance of the airship which has been sailing through the country. It was traveling due north and much nearer the earth than ever before. Evidently, some of the machinery was out of order, for it was making a speed of only 10 to 12 miles an hour and gradually getting towards the earth. It sailed directly over the public square, and when it reached the north part of town, collided with the tower of Judge Proctor's windmill and went to pieces. A terrific explosion, scattering debris over several acres of ground, wrecking the windmill and water tank, and destroying the judge's flower garden. The pilot of the ship is supposed to have been the only one on board, and while his remains are badly disfigured, enough of the original has been picked up to show that he was not an inhabitant of this world. Mr. T.J. Wings, the United States Signal Service officer at this place and an authority on astronomy, gives it as his opinion that he was a native of the planet Mars. Papers found on his person, evidently the record of his travels, are written in some unknown hieroglyphics and cannot be deciphered. The ship was too badly wrecked to form any conclusion as to its construction or motive power. It was built of an unknown metal, resembling somewhat a mixture of aluminum and silver, and it must have weighed several tons. The town is full of people today who are viewing the wreck and gathering specimens of the strange metal from the debris. The pilot's funeral will take place at noon tomorrow. S.E. Hayden. I find it interesting that it's noted they think the driver was from Mars. I'm assuming it's because of it being more of a well-known planet and being close to Earth compared to the others. I also found it slightly heartwarming they decided to give the Martian a funeral. I want to thank you for joining our episode today on 10 of the hotspots around America known for UFO encounters. If you enjoyed today's creepy content, feel free to join us on our socials. Instagram is our most active platform. For more creepy content, please feel free to go to www.creepyconfidential.com. And we will close today's episode with a Darkcast preview presentation by Beyond the Rainbow. Stay creepy, my friends, and we'll catch you next time here on Creepy Confidential.
Whoa there, Sparkle Farts, my trusty unicorn. I've got to tell these good people about our show. Hey there, I'm CJ, host of Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. While I do have episodes on some of the more well-known cases from the LGBTQ community, such as Matthew Shepard, Brandon Tina, and the Orlando Pulse nightclub massacre, I cover world cases like the London nail bombing murders, Australia's Snowtown murders, in South Africa's corrective rape and murder of lesbians. I cover lesser-known cases like the murder of 21-year-old trans man Alex Van Dulsen in Indiana. Police called his death a suicide. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. I tell you about wrongful conviction cases, serial killers, and school shooters. My unicorn and I cover all sorts of crimes against the LGBTQ and crimes by members of the LGBTQ. You don't have to be part of the community to listen. All walks of life are welcome to become Rainbow Warriors, because you matter. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.